The Mediterranean diet is a broad label applied to the dietary patterns that are found in countries in the Mediterranean basin. It generally has an emphasis on healthy fats, so things like olive oil and nuts and seeds, grain, vegetable and fruit consumption, as well as things like herbs and spices. There's moderate consumption of poultry, eggs, dairy, and then minimal consumption of red meats, processed meats and discretionary foods, so things like sweets or fast food, junk food generally, and also moderate wine consumption. Nowadays, it's mostly people who are trying to follow the Mediterranean diet, although it depends on how strictly you're adhering to it. So someone might only moderately adhere to the Mediterranean diet. Even in the countries where the Mediterranean diet was based on, so places like Crete, Italy, not as many people nowadays follow Mediterranean dietary patterns because there's just more access to junk food, discretionary foods, different farming practices. But especially in countries like Australia, it's very much people who are trying to adhere to the Mediterranean diet. There's not many people who accidentally stumble upon that way of eating.
Άμα δεν το φτάσαμε, άτε.
Χαίρετε, είμαι η Μαρούλα και είμαι από την Κύπρο και τώρα μένω Αυστραλία. Είναι ωραία τα μικρούλια γιατί δεν τα θέλουν πολύ, μόνο τη μοτούρα γκόφκης, έτσι. Έμαθα να μαγειρεύω από τη μάμα μου από μικρή ακόμα. Χρόνια και χρόνια. Κάνω σούπα το πρωί, vegetables, διάφορα, φάβα. Also some salad, things like that. Μαγειρεύω κάθε μέρα. Τρώμε ωφέλιμα πράγματα. Το πιο αγαπημένα μου φαγητά είναι το παστίτσο. Φτιάνεις κιμά, μακαρόνια και στο τέλος κρέμα και μπαίνει στο φούρνο. Μεγαλώνουμε τα περισσότερα εμείς. Παχαρικά, φρέσκα, λάχανα και μαρούλια, άλλα πράγματα. Ελιές, λεμόνια, άλλα φρούτα, φιτζόι, πώς το λες, δεν ξέρω τα ελληνικά του, πώς το λένε. Τις πιο πολλές φορές μας αρέσει έτσι, αλλά βάζουμε το κρέας στη μέση γιατί χρειάζεται και αυτό λιγάκι. Αλλά τα προτιμάμε όλα αυτά, όπως σέσκουλα, μελάδι, λεμόνι, διάφορα τέτοια. Φασόλια πρώτα, μετά ρεβίθια που είναι πολύ ωφέλιμα και επίσης φασόλια πράσινα, φασολάκια. Θα έλεγα ότι χρησιμοποιούμε πιο πολύ vegetables, λαχανικά και τέτοια, αλλά τώρα προσέχουμε πιο πολύ την δίαιτα μας. Όταν πάμε στην Κύπρο κάνουμε την ίδια δίαιτα.
So the Mediterranean diet was first publicized in the 1970s. It was established by Ansel and Margaret Keyes in 1970. It was based on research that looked at the dietary patterns of 7 different countries around the world, and it compared their risk of heart disease and their diet and tried to find a link between those things. It became popular in the 1970s as well, but more so in the 1990s, because the research showed that people that followed the Mediterranean style diet had similar fat consumption to Americans, but had lower risk of cardiovascular disease. And at the time there was a big trend in diets that focused on having a low-fat diet to reduce their risk of heart disease, but this kind of was a counterpoint to that, so it became quite popular around that time. Obviously, the most well-known health benefits of the Mediterranean diet would be the reduced risk of cardiovascular disease and death from stroke. There have been multiple studies that have been done that have found that there is a significant reduction in the risk of developing cardiovascular disease, dying from stroke, as well as some other health benefits, such as reduced risk of cancer and reduced risk of neurodegenerative diseases. Because the Mediterranean diet is so broad, like a lot of the times when people are doing research on the Mediterranean diet, they're looking at not just the foods you eat, but also like other lifestyle patterns. It's hard to attribute a lot of health benefits solely to the diet itself rather than other lifestyle aspects that kind of come along with that. So sometimes when there are studies that are looking at things like reduced cancer risk, there can be a lot of confounding factors that just aren't really to do with strictly the foods that they're eating. So most national healthy eating and food guides, they tend to be quite similar in their recommendations to the Mediterranean dietary patterns. There are also a lot of medical and dietetics associations and academic institutions that endorse the Mediterranean diet. This includes Harvard University, the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners, and the American Heart Association. The guidelines that you're generally given when you want to start following the Mediterranean diet, in terms of like just the foods that you're eating, or the foods that you would eat on a Mediterranean diet, there aren't really any downsides. However, the instructions, the guidelines that you might be given, there can be some downsides to that. A big downside would be that people who aren't familiar with Mediterranean foods or foods that would fit like the Mediterranean diet, they might have a hard time adhering to the diet. Because the direction given to people who want to follow the Mediterranean diet is quite broad, a lot of people might misinterpret some aspects of it. So, for example, something that people will be told when they want to start following the Mediterranean diet is they want to increase their consumption of healthy fats, and some people might take this to mean that they should just add extra olive oil to their dishes or just eat some more nuts rather than changing their diet as a whole, changing it more holistically. It has changed over time. Some researchers and experts have referred to what's happened as a westernization of the Mediterranean diet, where people have stopped adhering to the other aspects of the Mediterranean dietary patterns, which are the more socio-cultural aspects of it. So things like eating with your family, not eating while watching TV, or like the active lifestyle component of the Mediterranean diet. It used to encompass all of those things, but now people mostly just look at the food part of the Mediterranean diet.